We get to this, I guess what was a hotel, and it's closed, boarded up. And he's like, no, it's here. We're like, are you sure, dude? Like, this place is boarded the heck up. Like, we're not getting in. He's like, no, it's around the back. We're like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
So there's about a dozen of us, and we're all right. We're following him around, and he's looking. I think he even knocked on the door at some point. It's boarded up. The whole place is shuttered. It's done. It's gone.
I'm Brannon Poe, and this is the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where you can enjoy engaging conversations about mergers and acquisitions and accounting practice management. Listen in on strategies to build a more fun and valuable accounting firm. Welcome to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. Today, I'm speaking with a very special guest, Seth Fineberg. And if you don't know Seth already, he's been in the accounting industry for a long time. He is a consultant, content strategist, analyst, and speaker through his current business, which is called Accountants Forward. He aims to see the accounting profession progress through the creation of and guidance on practical and useful content from vendors, industry organizations, and accounting firms themselves. He plays a variety of roles in such content's creation and execution, be it on articles, podcasts like this one, white papers, and live events. He's been a business editor and journalist for over 30 years, the vast majority of which have been spent overseeing the accounting profession's evolution. To this end, he has served as technology editor at Accounting Today and the head of Accounting Web's U.S. team. His articles and insights have and continue to appear in top industry publications, including CPA Trendlines, Accounting Today, Insights Magazine, Carbon Magazine, his own Fineberg Review, and other podcasts and webinars. Welcome, Seth.
And Brandon, thank you so much for having me, man. I know that we've talked a bit before, and I'm just really glad to just be able to have these conversations with a like-minded individual out there. So thanks for carving out some time for me.
Yeah, well, I'm excited because you've got such a history in this profession and such a wealth of knowledge to share. I'm excited for what you might be able to share with our guests today, because I think the accounting industry is going through a really interesting, you used the word evolution in your bio, and I think the industry is going through an evolution like I've not seen before. The last few years are really transformational, which is exciting and scary for some. It's a period of change that we're going through. So I'm excited about that. So let me just give our guests some background first. How did you get to where you are, writing content for the accounting industry? How did that happen?
So, as a journalist, an editor, the simplest response, Brandon, is that it was a job that I went out for. 20 odd years ago, almost, back in 2002 or so, I just found myself looking for other writing opportunities. I guess I've kind of stayed in the B2B space, which is why, if you find me on Blue Sky or Twitter X, you'll find my handle is B2B Seth. That's kind of just been my path. Accounting was just another area that I got hired by Accounting Today to write about. And then I'm not sure what it was about it. I think because I had been a business writer already for a number of years, getting to know accountants and their role in business, you realize that they're the specialists, they're the doctors, they're the healthcare professionals. They are looking after your financial health. Business and even people's financial futures, they don't really happen, or they don't have as much success if you don't have an accountant there really doing that job. And that job, I've watched it evolve from it being just kind of a straight sort of compliance-based thing, which is necessary. They're doing the necessary things, but those necessary things have expanded. I know that I'm probably going a little off the rails, but it's very much a part of why I stayed and chose to stay, serving this community as I can. I'm only as good as the knowledge that I've had, and I've met some of the most wonderful people that I'll probably ever know in my life, in the accounting profession, because accountants at their core, they do what they do. It's a professional service. They care. You don't
Hmm.
do this like just as a money making thing. Sure, we all are in business, to any degree, obviously to get paid for what we do, but the very nature of what they're doing, they're not, you know, um, they're not like just straight making money. If you want to do that, you go maybe in investment banking, you go into, some kind of other financial field. The field of accounting is one of care. And it's, they have a certain, code of ethics that they follow, but ultimately their hearts are in it. And when their hearts are out of it, and when they're feeling burnt and done, a lot of them will go and, maybe do something else, not
Yeah.
accounting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
It is.
I
It is.
chose to stay because like I just, I enjoy seeing that in the world.
Yeah.
And
No, you're exactly right. I think they definitely care. And I think some of them take it even too far, and they care so much that they don't look after their own business as well as they should. They don't
on
look
their
after,
own health and their own,
yeah,
it is, becomes, and we all do that in our lives too, right? We're all guilty of that. Like when we really give of ourselves, you take a back seat, and it's everything else. And that can have a price.
right.
Uh,
And I do think it's interesting to see kind of some of the younger, more
mm,
entrepreneurial uh, firm owners that are, now um, growing really interesting practices. And I do feel like that generation, that younger generation, is doing a better job of balancing things out. I think the uh, the old school people that were working 3,000 hours a year, they're not quite as many of those folks still out there, but they're still out there.
there's plenty. There's plenty. Look, you have to. So when I was with Accounting Web, we actually did our best to try to quantify. And it was really just an exercise in like, who's our audience? Who are we reaching? Well, we have to start with who's the accounting profession, because that's all that we served was the accounting profession. It wasn't really business and industry. It was people who chose to go to work every day as an enrolled agent, a professional accountant, bookkeeper, or CPA. You worked in a firm, or you owned it, ran it, managed it, what have you, played some role in doing the work of accounting. That's your job. And in basically North America, we had estimated that there was probably around 1.4 million or so, 1.5 million or so individuals who do this job. And we came up with that number, really because we know that, the CPA, like, CPAs by and large are accountants. It's right in the name. But not all accountants are CPAs. About a third of them are. So we're looking around, if you look at AICPA's numbers, they're around 670 something thousand that go to work every day as you're a CPA. You're at a firm doing this. So of that number, a lot of them are in a fairly, they were brought up a certain way. They're at, what you had just labeled as and rightly so, as traditional firms, because you came up from a certain model of this is how we do things. And it served a purpose, and it continues to serve a purpose because accounting is about structure. It is about some kind of form and function, and you just are taught to not much like in the military, you're taught to not to do things in a certain way and not break from that, because if you do, bad things could happen, things could go wrong. So you stay on that path and do things a certain way. But you realize over time that that's not necessarily the best way. So the entrepreneurs, the people who maybe are, the first to really kind of jump are the folks who came up on that traditional path of I've worked for a big four, or I worked for a larger firm, traditionally who have that structure. And they decide, I love accounting. I love serving clients. I love doing all these things. I don't love doing it here. There's got to be a better way. And there are more and more people. There was actually an individual, I don't know if you know, Roman Villard. So Roman, very, very thoughtful individual, really talented accountant. He had put out a poll, which I applaud him for, because he was like, how many truly modern accountants do you feel are out there today? What's the percentage?
Mm.
And the poll that, again, somewhat skewed. It was on LinkedIn. You got to figure, well, maybe some people on LinkedIn, they consider themselves more modern, or they're already, maybe forward thinking, what have you. I don't know entirely, but folks thought that there was a good percentage. I think it was around, like 34% or so had said that they thought that more than 10% of the profession were modern accountants. In fact, and more of them thought that there were even, more out there. And by our estimates, by my view, it's that, that sort of top. So I see the accounting profession in a pyramid. In the top of the pyramid, the point, you're looking at probably around 7, maybe 8% of what I consider the alphas, the modern accountants, the people who you don't have to tell them about new technology unless you really want them to try it out. You don't have to sell them on it. They're already probably using it. They might even be building their own things or have some hand in it. They're ready, willing, and able. They've probably, as soon as ChatGPT came out, they were already playing with it. That
As first adopters.
That level of accountant is a small percentage of the overall, that 1.4 or so million individuals out there as accounting professionals. The bigger chunk are what I call the betas. So the alphas, you get the betas. Betas make up the largest portion of the accounting profession in terms of mindset, in terms of how they function. Meaning that's, probably around 55 to 60%, somewhere in there, are folks that are running practices, working in a practice, what have you, somewhere, in their career, that they have been taught a certain way to do accounting, and they realize that there's a better way. So you can talk to them about cloud, you can talk to them about AI, you can talk to them about blockchain, everything in between. Some new platform, some new process, some way to price, to serve. They're getting into more of these forward, not really forward thinking, but just these more just a little bit more planning involved in conversations. You're having more conversations throughout the year. I'm avoiding using the A word here. But it's because all that really means is you talk to your clients more. All of those things that are considered modern by accounting, traditional standards in accounting, that's the betas. They don't always know how. They need guidance. They need support. They're just willing to, so you run into them a lot at conferences because they're there, because they're like, yeah, I don't know everything, but I want to hear. I want to hear new ideas. Happy to get my CPE too, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to network. I'm here to listen, here to sit in sessions. I'm here to learn because I don't know everything. And then they're learning from a lot of them. They're learning from the alphas and then the people who have done it before. And then you have the big bottom tier. Not as many, maybe around, I don't know, I lost track of my numbers, but it's around 30 odd percent or so of the laggards, the people who are also, I don't like using that term as much, but I call them the leave me alones, the LMAs. Those are the folks that just are, I'm doing things in a certain way. It's working for me. I don't need to hear about all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I might try some new platform if some colleague or another says, hey, you know, this is less expensive, or I found success over here. And it's going to take them a while to do it. But by and large, they want to be left alone because they're having some success, or they just, maybe they're retiring in the next few years. They just want to be left alone. That's the accounting profession as
That checks
a
out
whole.
with our experience as well. When you were talking about that alpha group, and I was sort of in my mind guessing what is the percentage. I was thinking
It's gonna grow.
Yeah.
But you know, the fact that the betas at least are they're at different levels, right? And that's why it represents such a larger swath. And so what we're seeing in the profession now, so you had mentioned your original point was about sort of the transition that's going on. I think for the last several years now, we are seeing a profession, the professional service of accounting, in a state of of flux. It is in a state of transition, and it's both exciting and scary.
Yeah.
It's at a point of inflection, let's say.
Yeah. And you know what I think?
When I first came on, I think the profession was at an inflection point too, because I first started writing about accounting when the ink on Sarbanes-Oxley was drying. That particular, rule was put in place obviously for a reason, because of some major accounting things that happened. They went wrong, and they said, well, we've got to have some set of rules that prevent this from happening again. And it changed the structure of some firms. They said, okay, well, we can no longer do this work, or if we do, we have to have some other entity. It shifted things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, what's surprising to me, I think, prior to this period of transformation, 5 years ago, say 7 years ago, I would have thought that the technology was going to be the thing that would be the driving force to change the profession. And I think somewhat that's true, but I think
to a degree,
I think what's been the spark to get people on newer technology and newer ways of doing business is the talent shortage. I think that's the spark.
And also just waking up to just the human side of things, of going, why am I working 60 to 80 hours a week, even a few months a year? Why am I doing it? There's got to be a better way. At some point, the light bulb goes off. And for some folks, it unfortunately was the pandemic, because we were forced to work in a certain way. There was firms that I spoke to that, were hesitant about cloud and hesitant about remote work. And they're like, well, our tax professionals, we can't get them to do it. Guess what? You can't go into the office. What are you going to do? How are you going to work? How are you going to serve your clients?
Yeah.
Have to get on platforms that allow you to work this way. And all of a sudden, a few years of working that way, they go, I guess we can do it. This is actually pretty good. I'm home. I'm stressed out. I'm, whatever, getting used to this other way. But I'm able to be more connected to the files that I need, I can have meetings with people without having to drive and see them. And granted, I'm one of the biggest proponents of live interaction, and I think accountants need each other probably now more than ever, because of what we're talking about. Because everyone needs to learn from each other, because of just the whole nature of, let's really call it what it is, Brandon. The whole nature of being an accountant and doing accounting work, that's what's changing too. The talent shortage, sure. And the talent, and why do we have it? Well, I think a lot of people just said, blank this, because they were done. They were done with the hours. They were done with how things were expected to be done, and the expectation of just, and having to do, just this, what I like to call value, value over volume. There was too much volume
Yeah.
because you needed to serve X amount of clients to make Y at the end of the year. And if you worked at a CPA firm, it was all about charge hours, and that was your value in court, in terms of your boss or the higher ups, the managing partners there. you know and they didn't work those hours, but they did it themselves, so you got to do it too. And it's like that whole cycle had to
Yeah.
be broken. And so, yeah, there's not a lot of people who want to go into accounting or stay in it because of that. And then everything else too, like, oh, they're just, like, that there's better ways of doing things, and they're just not adopting them or adopting them fast enough.
Yeah.
So some folks are choosing to go into other fields, or maybe if they care about accounting enough, they're just starting their own firms and doing things in this better way. But yeah, by and large, you just don't have the people to do the job, and the job is changing, I
What
think.
do you just kind of shift the discussion a little bit? What are you most
Sure.
excited about? Um, like looking into the future at this point, what are you
Mhm.
seeing on the horizon that's like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. That's exciting.
Well, I think we were just starting to talk about it. I think I'm excited about the role of the accountant. The job of being an accountant or an accounting professional isn't going to be even what it was 10 years ago at this
Mm,
point. I like seeing that more human side of things. It's that you're this coach. You're all right, I'll say it. You're an advisor. You're a partner, really, in someone's, if you're helping individuals, you're helping with their financial health. You're invested in that family and their lives. You're doing things that maybe traditionally an accountant didn't do, like getting into wealth management, for example. These are very touchy-feely kind of things. Helping advise on investments for their financial future. And if you're helping grow a company, well, you're right alongside them. You're not just doing the books. You're not just filing the taxes. You're not doing all of the functional back office things.
yeah, we
The,
truly
the,
are.
the accountant is coming out of the back and going more into the front. They're alongside of the business.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited for. And sure, technology, if you want to get into it, I know that you want to talk AI. AI's role to me is just the next level of automation that's happening right before us. Is it frightening? Is it scary? There's unknown, because of the unknown. The unknown, generally speaking, is scary. Great thing about AI that I see, at least in the business world, is that it needs data. It needs humans. It needs you to say, you know, go here but not there. It needs you to check over that it's right, because you're still the educated and trained and experienced professional. And AI, of course, is not like software. Software is programmed to just be if then. That's pretty much the nature of software, here to here. And if you want it to do something else, you have to program it to do something else. AI is kind of more like see it as like a member of your staff. You've hired them to do a job. You need to train them, and hopefully they're going to learn and grow and all of that, but you still have to have some guidance. And there's still a lot unknown about where it's going to go, but I'm still excited for it to see where it's going to take things. And just I think people's mental kind of state will ultimately improve, because we won't have to uh, work as much or as hard.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of penned this thought the other day. Is just kind of a loose thinking about some of the trepidation. Just we're in times of change right now, as we know. I get it. What was safe. We went through it. It's familiar. We know it. No wonder people want it. Some people want to go back to it. But
Mhm.
what is won't ever be what was. And that sometimes, it kind of gives people some pause. The way things are now, they're not what they were. When they were going on, you didn't always know how good it was. But, when we look back on it, we can say, well, we went through that. It's familiar. And what will be scary. It's unknown. What's going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I get wanting to go back. But we did that. We can only control where we are and hopefully have some say in where we go so that when we get there, it's not so scary.
Well, I just think there's a lot of it's how you frame it too. Like I think there's a lot of
Sure.
opportunity. Where there's change, there's opportunity. And you know, I think you're right. I think the job is going to get more interesting in general. You're going to truly get away from the
Yeah.
compliance and away from that. And it's going to be a little more mentally challenging, but it's going to be good in a good way. And I think the people who can connect with their clients really well and bring this to the client in a meaningful way is the job is going to become more rewarding because you're going to see more of the impact that you're having.
Exactly. Exactly. The very nature of like, oh, I want to go into accounting, like that's what that's going to mean. And I'm already seeing, different iterances of it. Um, is very exciting, and I think it probably will become a more attractive career
Yeah,
and path, to have but it takes work. It
yeah,
it has to start at the managing partner level. It has to start at the leadership level,
yeah,
and it has to take enough of a critical mass of people because, as we know, with any points of inflection mass adoption of new processes or any doing anything it takes time and it takes enough that to move the needle. And in the accounting profession, enough people have to be saying, well, this is how we're doing things now
yeah.
for it to become the
And
way the
right.
way
And one thing I'd like to add, like if you are embracing change, the first thing you have to do is create the capacity to study it and to invest in that change. Like
totally.
it's really hard to make any change happen if you're slammed and you're so busy, there's no margin.
You
Um,
don't give yourself that mental space to consider doing things in a different way. And as I just said, like stepping out of what um, accountants just historically enjoy the known,
yeah,
not the unknown. But at the same time, especially if you're in tax, there's a lot of unknown. There's tax laws that are going to change on you, and tax code, I should say, that's going to change year in and year out. So that's why I never liked once you realize how much change that some accounting professionals have to deal with year in and year out.
yeah.
To hear the narrative of, oh, well, they're averse to change. Like, yeah, okay, but not so much.
Hey, this is Liesel. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Accountant's Flight Plan. We've got a special offer for our listeners. If you want to save $250 on Accounting Practice Academy, our 8-week practice management workshop, use the promo code POD250 when you submit your application and start building a practice you would buy.
Well, let's talk a little bit about accountants forward. So,
Yeah.
tell us, what you're doing over there. What's how long when did you start it? And what's going on at accountants?
So my story is, again, my background, and I found myself the end of the summer of 2022, without a full-time job. Counting Web in the U.S. Had to close for a bunch of reasons I don't need to go into, but we were owned by a UK business, and they made the difficult decision to say, well, we you know can't really support you any longer, and we need to downsize and et cetera, et cetera. So I needed to figure out what was next for me. You know, the known decision probably would have been, all right, well, I'll just look for some other editorial job, which may have brought me out of accounting. But I had enough people in my ear when they found out, that I was leaving, or that, Accounting Web was no more, that, flat out asked me to stay, find some way. And it touched me, it moved me. And I had to figure out that how to do it. Like, what do I know and what can I add? How can I do this? And so it's been an evolving thing. So I guess, when the calendar switched to 2023, so a couple of years ago, I made the commitment, spoke with my partner, who I had to be sure she was on board with with me, trying this new business idea. And the name came easy. The name was, well, it's what I believe. I want to see this profession move forward. How do I do that? I'm just me. I'm just one person. But I believe in influence. I believe in what I know and who I know. And that was my base. And ultimately, the business side of things is I am a marketing consultant. I work predominantly with, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of vendors in the space, or service providers, or organizations, anyone who is looking to deepen or form even their relationship with the accounting profession, who I have served in my way for, a few decades now. I feel that I know them, and I enjoy continuing to get to know them. But I also know good writing. I know the power of good content. It builds trust. And the one thing that accountants really need in order to start using these new platforms or services or join groups, whatever it is, whatever thing that you're going to get them to do, they need trust. They need something of worth, something of value, something that we realized back when I was working at Accounting Web. We structured our site not to just as another publication. To me, that says, well, you're reporting on things. You're writing articles on the state of the profession and different things, events that go on. This product, this firm did this product maker did that. These things are going on Capitol Hill. Accounting today and CPA trend lines, and maybe not trend lines. Trend lines just kind of changed their approach to more of this practical approach. But there's enough publications in the space that are reporting on the state of things. We chose to put practical and useful content out there. Sometimes it was written by the vendor community. Sometimes we would get in there and consult with them and guide them on how we were supposed to say things, and we'd work on themes, and we'd work off projects, themed projects, content projects, I should say. So I'm building on that and working with some newer companies, some established companies who just are trying to deepen their relationships, as I mentioned. And occasionally I'll get some speaking gigs. I'm working also with a couple of live events as a advisory board member, also consultant. I'll speak publicly, or I'll help. I like being behind the scenes. I don't need things to be about me. I've had some of these companies go, oh, well, we're doing this thing. Why don't you, write that or be out in front of this? And I'm like, that takes away from you. You're a brand. You're trying to establish yourself. It doesn't matter what I say. I'd rather just be, have it come from you. I don't mind writing it. that's something that I do, or at least directing
Right.
how things are. I'll come up with a content, plan. And sometimes I'm just introducing people. I'm working with a client right now who a lot of what I'm doing is getting them better connected, saying what they should do at events, helping them meet, people who ultimately might be, staff for them, or maybe use their product, because they, don't really have that on staff to do. So that's me. And then yeah, I've got my newsletter that I started, which is really just my own musings. Sometimes I'm promoting, other things that might be going on in the profession. And sure, there's some news I might go, oh, hey, pay attention to this. I get it distributed kindly by the folks at CPA Trendlines, who I have a good relationship with, so it gets out to a much wider base. I do a ton of social listening, so you'll probably see me tweeting stuff out or blue skying things out, or on LinkedIn with the latest musing or sharing of things. So I'm keeping myself in the, I guess, the zeitgeist. Is that still a
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know. So I think the first time we met in person might have been at the Accounting Today conference in San Diego last year,
Yep.
and I
That's
do
that's one that's
recall.
one of the events that I'm helping with.
Well, I do recall you were pretty good on the karaoke stage there too.
I have there's you had asked me earlier, and I don't know if we're at that point yet, but you had asked me earlier about like coming up with a funny story about karaoke and the accounting space. So people who know me somehow, myself, and also the editor of Accounting Today, Dan Hood, who's a great friend, and he and I, when we worked together at Accounting Today some years back, we had a publisher who was really into going out and doing karaoke, and he thought that was the funnest thing. And after a few drinks, so we were it was after Accounting Today had we had put on a conference in Vegas at the time, and we just had our whole, how some people tend to do. It's kind of like a Pied Piper sort of situation of like, we're going here, like, okay, we're following you. And here we are, stumbling around, fairly inebriated through the Vegas Strip. I think we were coming from possibly the Bellagio or the Wynn, somewhere, one of those hotels. And he was convinced that there was karaoke at this. He's like, it's the greatest experience that you're ever going to have, and it's the coolest bar, and everything's really cheap. And so we walk across, how the Vegas Strip is. Like sometimes you have to circumnavigate, going across or over, or you got to get around traffic, whatever. We get to this, I guess what was a hotel, and it's closed, boarded up. And he's like, no, it's here. We're like, are you sure, dude? Like, this place is boarded the heck up. Like, we're not getting in. He's like, no, it's around the back. We're like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
So there's about a dozen of us, and we're all right. We're following him around, and he's looking. I think he even knocked on the door at some point. It's boarded up. The whole place is shuttered. It's done. It's gone. So he was like, well, I don't understand. It was here. So we, he got on his phone, or someone's got on our phones. He's like, all right, there's got to be karaoke around here somewhere. We're going to go somewhere. So after a few minutes of whatever phone searching was back, however many years ago this was, possibly 15 or more. I don't know. It's a long time ago. He found it. He said, all right, I got the place. We're going. And here we are, walking again behind hotels. We're going off the Strip at this point. And we're like, where the heck are you taking us? He's like, no, look, I found the place. We're going. It was a couple of blocks off the Strip. It was another sort of smaller casino. and we're walking through it. It's clouds of smoke, and we're looking at the tables. The table, the bets on the tables were maybe like $1. There were nickel and dime slots. We're like, okay, we have stumbled into some weird movie here, but sure, let's go. We don't care because we had that energy. We had the beer muscles or whatever it is. We're going. We're doing it. And back in the corner of this seedy as heck casino was a bar. And the bar had someone singing on the stage, this little tiny stage. And the person singing on the stage was a little person, and who was dressed head to toe as Elvis, but you could not recognize a thing. I think English was not his first language, and we just didn't quite understand what this was. And we're like, we're home. We found it. And so that's how the legend of the Ellis Island Casino came to be. So people who know Vegas, they know me, they know Dan. Whenever we're in Vegas, they're like, when are we going to karaoke? Are we going to Ellis Island? And this is, again, this is going back about 15 years ago or so. And it just stuck. And we I remember at one point, so, we would go, often, back then, every conference was in Vegas. Every accounting conference under the sun was in Vegas. We're in Vegas, 4, 5, 6 times a year for an accounting conference because they were all in Vegas. Not as much anymore, but the AICPA always has Engage there. And before that, it was Practech. That was the combined conference that they had. So anytime a Vegas conference would come around, enough of us would get together and go, all right. And one time, an entire stretch Humvee full of accounting conference goers rolled up, and we literally just took over the back of the place. And I think one of them had a videographer with them and was taking pictures. And I don't know if that's such a funny story, but people who know and have been to Ellis Island, they're like, oh yeah, that place. I'm like, well, this is the story of how it came to be.
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, I do like to sing. I'm in a band of my own here in New York. It's very different. I'm just it's a punk band, so it keeps me young. So that's the other. It's my other. I wrote an article a couple of years ago about finding your other. Having the importance of having this other thing in your life that you do. You go hiking, you do art, you sing in a punk band, I don't know, help out a local museum. I don't know, whatever it is that you do that's your other. Look, I met a bunch of accountants. I fell in love with this band from Canada. They've been around for over 20 years. And I had found out that all but one of them they're all accountants.
Wow.
They work, 2 of them are brothers. They work in the same firm, and they mostly work in the entertainment industry. So they help out artists and things like that with their books, their taxes, and all things like that. And then there's another member of the band. She has her own bookkeeping practice. And cool. They do that to because they're like, look, this is our calling, this is our life. Like, we're actually doing accounting, doing the straight work because it supports this.
Yeah,
because we want to go on. We want to go on the road. We want to go to Europe. We want to tour, the U.S. and Canada, and meet all these people and play our music. And we have these jobs because of that.
Yeah.
But as an accountant, I get it. Like, you chose accounting for a certain reason. As I said earlier, like, you probably want to help. You chose this career to help out, but it is important to have that balance, or what I like to call life-work balance. It's something that I had actually heard. I can't make a claim over the phrase, but I'm giving it life, and I want it to continue. People are like, oh yeah, work-life balance. I'm like, the only problem with that is you're putting work first. Why?
Yeah, that's true. I like it.
Don't give it. Don't put it first. That's the problem.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, you make a good point. Like the phrase kind of says a lot right there. So, well, let's finish up. I got one more question for you, and I'll let you go. What are you reading right now? What do you enjoy to read? I always like to get a book recommendation from our
See
guests.
if this is going to show up here. So you see it's a
Your
hardcover.
background, your background's got
You
it blued
see it? My
out.
background can't do it. Okay.
Yeah, your
So we
background's got it.
can't quite see it. Okay. It's called The World We Make. The author is N.K. Jemisin. So N.K. Jemisin she is a young writer from right here in New York City. She writes kind of sci-fi, fantasy, kind of in the way of if you like H.P. Lovecraft, very, very much along those lines. So this was kind of the second part of um, uh, a series. I don't know if it's a series, but her first book was called "The City We Become," and this is called "The World We Make," and it's all about um, really physically adopting the attributes of the city that you live in, wherever it is. And the world we make, it explores other cities around the world. And you meet individuals who are like, oh, like you're New
Beautiful.
York,
Yeah.
you're London, you're Tokyo. And all of them have their different personalities and they can kind of control and they have a sense of like the vibe of the city. So the sci-fi element is that, well, there's like these other forces from another dimension that are looking to kind of take over and kind of make everything in every city, uniform, and ultimately kind of do away with them. So these beings can exist because
Yeah.
they're from another dimension and theirs is messed up. So they've come to ours to kind of take over and assimilate and survive and live. And the people who are here, they're like, well, we live here and we don't want you to. So it's
Interesting.
it's good writing. It's fun. It's kind of edge of your seat. You're wondering what's going to happen next. But when I read or whenever I listen to music, I do it as an escape. I like or you watch movies. You want to just get immersed in something else that's not work or
Yeah.
life or anything else. You want to be entertained. You want to feel like you're somewhere else. I've rediscovered. I'm in my mid-50s at this point, and I've rediscovered just my true love of music and experiencing it live. I'm fortunate to have a partner where we do overlap quite a bit in our musical tastes, but there's some where we don't, and so she'll kind of go and go, well, I'm going to go and see this show, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go and see this show, and it's just important to have that connection because this is, as far as we know, this is the life we have.
Yeah.
It's not to be morose, but it's going to not be at some point. So all we can do is and I wrote about this recently in my recent newsletter about the things that we can control.
Yeah.
And really focusing on that. We're much of our world is professionally and politically and socially is getting a little out of whack. And so all we can do to really kind of maintain some sense of moving forward or positivity or whatever, it's, focus on what you can control.
Yeah. Because you can't control the other stuff, so don't worry about it, right? Pretty
Well,
much.
yeah. I mean, don't really let it bog you down.
Yeah. Well, Seth, this has been great. I'm going to close off with that. One other thing, what is the best way for people to follow you online? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Sure. Well, let's see. I mean, obviously you can, my website's kind of more like, oh, go to my website. My website is really kind of more of my business card. This is like, it has a big explanation of what I do and why I do it. It has some of my latest writings and things that I'm promoting. So that's easy. That's at either accountantsforward.com or sethfineberg.com. If you want to get in touch with me, LinkedIn is pretty great. I have a lot of people who end up scheduling conversations with me that way. So you can find me on LinkedIn. If you follow me on other social platforms like X, I'm again at B2B Seth. Same thing with Blue Sky. You can look up B2B Seth. I think the official is B2B Seth dot BSKY. The long sort of URL that they give you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Seth. It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate you sharing all this with our audience. And look forward to seeing you in another karaoke.
I would love that, my friend. Yeah, and to anyone sort of here and watching me, listening to me, plan to go to at least one live event this year. There are plenty. I actually I took some time and some pains to craft a pretty extensive list and descriptions of most of them, of the accounting related events, the independents, the small ones, the big ones, the ones put on by vendors, anything between now and the end of the year that you might consider going to. Definitely give it some thought. Now's the time to plan. Yeah. And I hope to see you at one of them.
Likewise.
I'm not going to be at everyone, but
we're doing a lot more conferences this year ourselves, so we'll be at a lot of those conferences too. So
excellent. Well, I look forward to running into you, and if there's an opportunity for karaoke, we'll do it, man.
It sounds good. Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. You can keep the momentum going by subscribing and sharing your thoughts with us. Visit our website at pogroupadvisors.com for more resources, and tune in next time for more exciting conversations like this one.